Welcome to my brand new podcast, proudly sponsored by Mylands, the heritage paint company with a royal warrant whose colours grace the sets of 007 and Harry Potter. Well, over 8 weeks on New Chapters, I explore the bold moves, the quiet resets, and those powerful reinventions that go on to shape extraordinary lives. I'm delighted to tell you that this week my guest is Louise Roe. From conquering LA, hosting red carpets and MTV's Plain Jane, to returning to the UK to found her international homewares brand, Charlotte England. It's now making its debut in London's legendary Liberty. Louise Roe, welcome to New Chapters.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hi.
It's on your podcast.
Oh, well, thank you very much. What exciting new chapters for both of us. But I mean, Liberty is a really big deal. How does it feel in this new chapter of yours?
Really exciting. Our office is quite nearby, and on the day we launched last week, I sort of went in gingerly in the morning, and there it all was out on display on a big table, and people were already perusing it and picking things up. So it was definitely a pinch me moment. I think in life you get moments that are worth like stopping and going, oh my gosh. So yes.
No, I mean, it stopped me doom scrolling, when you look through and you go, oh, hang on a minute. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
a
that's
big
good.
deal. Yeah. Well, if you think of Liberty, I mean, you have a huge following, probably a cult following in the States, and we'll talk about your American chapter in a bit, but everyone in America has heard of Liberty, right? It's, you come to London, it's sort of like Buckingham Palace, the red buses, and people head to Liberty because it's almost like on the tourist map as well. So huge congratulations on that. And I hope it goes really, really well. So how is it going in this new chapter and as a creative director of a homewares brand?
It feels really right, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm where I should be. I feel very inspired and grateful for that. And also, I think life's a stream of chapters. And living in LA for 11 years, working in the entertainment industry like you was brilliant. And the stories I've got, and I'll never not love that. But I do feel like, I don't know if pivot's the right word, but the next chapter being in homewares and being a little bit more behind the scenes making things is really enriching. I love it. With homeware, I just love the fact that you build upon your home over time and it really encapsulates memories. For me, the brand is named after my great granny Marjorie Charland. It's called Charland England.
Oh.
And I actually, where I'm sitting talking to you right now, there's a black and white photo of her sitting on a rattan bench, and she's, even though I never met her, the stories my mum tells of how she decorated and entertained but always had this twinkle in her eye, she never took it all too seriously. And so that is a long way of basically coming back to your question of like, it's sort of hit like a bolt of lightning. This is what I want to do. I want to make beautiful things that last, that people will hopefully pass down to daughters and sons.
And it's not an unnatural pivot. I mean,
No.
if people love fashion, they've got an eye for aesthetics. They usually love art. They also love interiors. It's, a very natural progression.
Yeah.
And dare I say something that comes as we become home owners, which is a polite way of saying as we get older. You start off young and you can go and buy stuff and make yourself look fabulous. But actually, once you start to get your own properties, you care about decorating them as well.
I do laugh when it's true. I still love shoes, but if I'm given the chance to go and buy a sort of antique or a painting, or I'm like, I'm going to take the bowl. I'm going to go for the old Spanish bowl I've just found in the market rather than a pair of shoes. So whether that's getting old, I don't know, but it makes me happy.
I'm in the same place as you.
I
So
bet you
totally
are.
get it. Totally get it. Louise, you touched on it there, because I suppose what led to you being able to do this chapter where you feel more you was your stint in LA. You conquered it. I started by saying that. I think that's fair to say. I mean, you described yourself in an article that I've read in the Times as being really ambitious, a suitcase full of ambition when you touch down, but plenty of people do that and they don't make it. So, what was it like turning up there? And again, I read that you turned up to everything. You worked like, really, really hard. But how do you think you conquered LA?
Oh, I don't know if I conquered it, but I enjoyed it. And I did, yes, I did manage to work consistently, which can be tricky in that town. I think there's an element of ambition combined with naivety. And when you're 26 and you get off the plane and you do say yes to everything, not just the meetings and the lunches, but also the evening events. Nowadays, I'm a bit more like, I don't know. But I think you make your own luck as well. I definitely was following up on every single email I got or message or lead, and plenty of rejection. Oh my gosh, so much of it. You get used to that. But I think that the shows I did host were great fun and so much adrenaline. And that often led to the next show, So it was fairly consistent, which was lucky.
Well, yeah, and it's not just hard work, it's talent as well, and also the way you conduct yourself. And you built this reputation. I read that, people asked for you. Julia Roberts requested you as a journalist and had you fly into Monaco to interview her. I mean, that's mega.
That is probably the coolest moment. Yes, I did get a phone call from an executive producer who I knew well, and he's like this very funny New Yorker, and he was like, "So I got a call." And he was like, "You know Juliet?" And I was like, "No." But her publicist had called him and said, "Right, she wants this girl." And next thing you knew, I was on a plane, and I interviewed her, Kate Winslet, Penelope Cruz. It was the women who are still the face of Lancôme. And it was this
Wow.
huge trip that was amazing. And my husband got to come along, well, which was brilliant. And yes, I think moments like that you don't forget. And
For sure.
I should probably write them all down and
You
into.
really have to. And if there's one thing I've learned from this New Chapters podcast is everybody keeps saying to me, I wish I'd written a diary. And I regret that too, but it's not too late. Because as you say, lots more chapters to come. But actually thinking about you and Julia Roberts, you are a little bit Julia Robertsy. Has anyone ever said that?
Stop it.
No, you are.
Don't be
Actually, it's just
silly.
occurred to me talking to you now. It's the
No.
big smile and the tresses and the legs. No?
But that is very, very kind
Too
of you,
much.
Isabel. But she is an absolute, and do you know what? When you meet your sort of heroes, you always get a bit nervous, don't you? I mean, you've met plenty, but she was everything you wanted her to be. She
Oh, good.
cackled, she was relaxed, she was funny, self-deprecating, and just she's magic. I think over the years, when you do interview lots of people who are in the movies, some have star quality is a thing, and
Oh,
not
for
that
sure.
many have it. And she has it in buckets.
Who doesn't have it?
Oh, no, I mean, I can't, there isn't someone that springs to front of mind,
No.
but I wouldn't name
What
names.
was Gwynny? Of course not. Way too classy for that. But what was Gwynny like? Because I know you interviewed her and she gets loads of grief, doesn't she? I love the fact, she cried in her Oscars. I would have done the same acceptance speech. And Goop, I mean, she gets loads of
Yeah.
grief for that. What was she like? Was she a bit woo-woo or
No, she
quite?
was brilliant. I interviewed her a few times, and I absolutely adore Gwyneth Paltrow. I
Yeah.
think she is. If you listen to her podcast with Emma Greed on Emma's new podcast, she talks in depth about her role at Goop and how it started. And I think that is a fascinating insight into her as a businesswoman. And she's the CEO and has been for a good 8 years or so. And you can't carry that role without getting, your hands dirty. So
Yeah.
I have massive respect for her.
And what was it like? Obviously, you went to LA because you were seeking, this role in television and that was, everything was great. But, what was fame like? I know the tabloids aren't like they are in the UK. Did you have all those things that people suffer with, trolls and tabloid press or any of that?
Okay, I was not famous, and I never think of myself in that way at all. I interviewed famous people, and that's the way I like it. I'm sure you're the same. I like getting the story out of them.
Yes.
And that's, I think, a journalistic role that, I mean, yes, I wore nice dresses and walked on lots of red carpets, but because I was there in a reporter capacity, I suppose. So covering
Yes.
the Oscars and the Globes was
Yeah.
amazing. I think the tabloid press in the UK are certainly slightly different in their approach to the US. And I think even people in Hollywood are aware of that. But I did have a bit of a golden era. I arrived there in 2009, and yes, Facebook was around, but Instagram hadn't even launched yet. I think people had a lot of fun and there weren't cameras following them the entire time.
Yeah.
Old school.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that. I mean, neither of us sought fame, and obviously I interview people and get pleasure from talking to people, but I do end up occasionally in the papers. And I'm not saying I'm any way famous, but I mean, just yesterday there's a headline in the Daily Mail about my weight, which is just so frustrating because I'm trying to talk about launching something, and of course, the tabloids want to talk about a woman and what size she is. And I just was curious if ever you felt that pressure yourself, or if actually, as you say, it's more of a modern thing with social media.
First of all, I'm sorry to hear that. But no, I haven't. I've been really lucky. So the main show that I ended up hosting was called Plain Jane, and it was on MTV for I think we did about 7
I
years.
remember it. Yeah.
A long old stint, and it was a really positive message of yes, making over young women, but more than that, we went a bit deeper into giving them more confidence, and I ended up fronting MTV's anti-bullying campaign. And as a
Amazing.
result, I had and still have a very, very female skewed audience, 98%, and
Interesting.
all women who are pretty much my age or a little, I don't know, younger, a little older, but they are all just really nice people. So I would touch wood that I'm lucky. I kind of got unscathed. I mean, I'm sure there have been one or two mean comments, but in all honesty, someone once said to me, "Why would you give any more attention to a negative comment? You should be giving that attention to the 10 positive ones." And I've never forgotten that, because you do. I think it's human nature to
Yeah.
to hone in on that one unkind response and think, "Oh, I'll make them figure it out. Let's." I actually don't respond at all, but which is another a piece of advice I would share. But that energy, put it into the good ones, because I bet you there are 10 people that said, "Love your dress, you look great, love your hair," and then reply to them instead.
Yeah, and actually, even people who don't send that message but think it, actually, most people are too busy to even comment. So I always try to just not just focus on the comments, but imagine, hope for the best. It can be brutal, can't it? But whilst you're in LA, obviously doing lots of TV, I noticed that you did a shoot for Architectural Digest, and I wondered if that was your first kind of taste of,
Oh, yeah.
oh, I'm getting into interiors. And I mean, Arch Digest is massive.
Yeah. Yes, we did a video as well with them. I think it was probably. I was always very interested in it as a hobby and something. I mean, the first place I went when I landed there was the flea market, and I picked up some really lovely pieces of furniture and lamps. And I can remember LA is very mid-century in terms of its architecture and what you tend to find at the flea markets, which is less my aesthetic. But
Yeah.
I kind of leaned into it while I was there because it
Yeah.
worked. And then as you grow and develop, my taste did change a little bit. But yeah, I think I was always interested in it, but it wasn't on my mind to make it a career.
And I read that you described Hollywood as being a bitingly competitive single industry city where agents and exec producers frequented the same restaurants, which could be brilliant, but also could be exhausting. And I wondered if that was, one of the reasons it was one dimensional out there that you decided to come back, or what was the reason that we were lucky enough
God,
to welcome
that
you home?
didn't mince my words there, did I? I wonder when I said that. To be honest, I think yes, more so than London, there is a handful of places that if you don't want to bump into people from work, just don't go. I probably should have said that instead. And I think that it's yeah, someone once said to me, there are two single industry towns in the US, Washington and LA. And there were definitely moments where I wanted a bit of a breather from that. And, whether I would go to New York and have dinner with a bunch of people who were all in complete eclectic industries, that could feel quite refreshing in a way.
And was that the driving reason behind coming back, or were there? I mean, I know that you're one of three girls. You grew up not far from where I am here in Surrey. Was it the pull of family as well? The
Yes.
pull to start your own family?
Yeah, it was a mix of so many reasons, but I left loving LA still, and I always will. It wasn't like, oh, I'm over it. It was more like this, and I keep using the word chapter, not trying to
I love it.
highlight your podcast name, but it's true. I felt like this LA chapter was coming to a close, and remember, we knew nothing about COVID being around the corner, so it
Yeah.
was kind of lucky in retrospect. But I was married. I had my eldest daughter, she was 1.5. So we had started the family. We were in the thick of it in West Hollywood. So we thought, right, either we move to a slightly quieter neighborhood within LA, or we go back to the UK. And I think, like anyone at an age where you have your own young family, you think about your own parents. I wanted them to be grandparents that were around. I wanted my kids to see their cousins and to have honestly so many reasons. I also missed being on the doorstep of so many European cities, which you take for granted when you're here. But over there, just the thought that you can get on a train and have lunch in Paris is amazing.
Yeah.
And so
Although
I
we
made
never
a
do
list.
it, or at least I don't.
No, we don't. But I did make a list of places, though, where I hadn't been, including Vienna and Lisbon and various cities. And we have so far been ticking them off. So I was like, come on, let's do. I also missed slightly, and controversial to say, but like the depth of culture and history. And I remember my husband laughing at me and was like, don't you miss like cobbled streets and beautiful old chimneys? And I just need a bit of that in my soul. And he was like, no, I'm fine, but I get it.
So did you have to drag Mackenzie back a little bit?
A little. I think he
Yeah.
would have stayed a year or two more. But he also had only lived there about 7 years, and I'd done 11. So it was I was a bit further into the journey.
And so you came back and you literally did exactly that. You lent into the British traditional architecture and went to the countryside,
Yeah.
bought I think a Georgian farmhouse, and
Yeah.
then really went to town on exploring your sort of interior creativity. Tell me about that whole process. And as you mentioned, I think lockdown kicked in. So was that everything you dreamt it would be?
It was brilliant timing. We restored this old rectory that things like the first night, I remember it was dark and we got the keys and we both pulled up the carpets to see if the original floorboards were underneath, and they were. And things like that. The neighbor, this wonderfully chic older lady, said, I think there's actually a mosaic underneath those slabs by the door. We pulled them up gently and there was this Victorian mosaic. So we restored that. I wanted the house to be as it had been in the past. And so researching that and doing that, we found old fragments of wallpaper. This is stuff that was like, I remember squealing and the builders were like, are you okay? I was like, this is my jam. I'm loving this. And so that definitely springboarded something in me to then come up with the idea for Charlotte in England, for sure, that experience.
And I think lockdown, we all had crazy, brilliant sort of LA style weather. So maybe the reality of a winter in the countryside hadn't hit you. But I wonder if, life in Wellington boots was all it was cracked up to be, because I don't think you were in the countryside for very long.
No, I think we were a year and a half, if that. I loved it. People were so welcoming, and and you're right. It was great weather. I enjoyed the whole process, but we did just look at each other one day and go, I think it was too big of a jump to go from the thick of LA. And I wasn't done with London yet.
Yeah.
I was like, in my life as an adult, I'd lived in LA far longer than I'd ever lived in London. And I just had more that I wanted to do there. And not that you can't go into London from the countryside, but we both agreed. And so I was pregnant at the time, and it was like now or in a year. So we went for it and moved.
And to be fair, there are little pockets in London, aren't there, that feel like villages. It's not like you have to be in a high rise or whatever. You can have the best of both if you shop around and find the right little corner. So presume you've done that. Talking about European cities to pop to, did you make it to Lisbon? Because just whilst you were speaking, I was thinking, for goodness sake, the tiles and all of the incredible artisan work and materials that you see there are so Charlotte. It's just like screams Louise Roe to me.
Yes. And there are other cities like that. In fact, I haven't been to Porto yet, further north, and I really want to go there for the same kind of reasons. I also really want to go to Romania and Hungary, because I'm very inspired by their traditional techniques of ceramic painting, but also embroidery. And these designs get passed down through generations, which I love, that sense of tradition. So yes, I've got lots more traveling to do.
Have you been to Bruges? Just my grandmother was from not far from Bruges in Belgium, and they did a lot of the traditional artisan lace making. And you'd see ladies on the street with the sort of baubles and everything. And I think that screams a little bit of Louise Roe in there.
Oh my gosh. Are you Belgian then?
Well, I'm a quarter Belgian. Yeah.
Oh, I It's not Ghent where she was from, is
It's
it?
not far. So she was
No.
near, it's sort of between Ghent. She was from a little town called Roeselare, which is quite near to Ypres, which is obviously famous from war times. But Bruges and all of those areas have that incredible artisan industry for lace. Have you been
Yeah.
to Ghent?
No, it's absolutely there. So, and the Eurostar goes straight to Bruges, doesn't it? I think so.
Yeah, so there we go. You could do a little trip there.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about what you discovered and learned about yourself doing. Did you have to do up your house in London when you moved in? And has your taste changed along the way?
We did two back to back. I think in the
Gosh.
countryside, it felt more like a restoration rather than a makeover. But it was definitely, yes, we had builders and decorators in, and then back to back in London, which could have felt like a nightmare. But actually, I was quite energized by it. I think we felt we were lucky in that we had good people that stuck to timelines. And I think the stress comes from things being late or over budget. So we were lucky for that. I think we learned a lot in the first go, even like, okay, where did the plug sockets need to be hidden rather than like, there are sort of things that you think of, right, next time we'll do it in this kind of order. But in terms of my taste, it definitely hasn't changed. But one thing I always stand by is be guided by the bones of the house and what is the era that the house was built, because that can tell you a lot about, I don't know, what would and wouldn't work visually. Colors. I always think it's nice to have a color story. So if you can see from one room into the next, do those colors all complement each other? And the use of fabric. I mean, I just enjoy it. So I think
Yeah.
that for me, I'm actually itching. My husband said we're not allowed to move again, but I'm itching to do another one
I
because I
was
just love
wondering
it.
if that was on the cards because I mean, you strike me as someone that has like limitless energy, so much energy. Because again, I remember following your journey on Instagram, and I think your second baby must have come along, and the baby was still really tiny. And were you hand painting, or someone was hand painting your wardrobe? And it was like, I didn't even know where my hairbrush was when I had a baby, and you're doing this incredible house renovation, and you just strike me as someone that just keeps going, never stops.
Oh, I'm not. I definitely need my like pull back time. And I think they always say, whatever the sort of analogy is, of like the four hobs can't all be burning at once. And I think that for me, the social life is what took a back seat because I was starting company and did have a new baby.
Yeah.
So I'm still a bit like that. I'm a bit of a home bunny, and I definitely don't have. You seem to me like you've got limitless energy. I feel like you give that.
No, well, I mean, isn't that funny? That's just what, obviously, that's what we project, and we don't
Yeah.
necessarily show behind the scenes. But I mean, yesterday was the day after my podcast launch, and I was like
Yeah.
completely broken. So
Yeah.
I give a lot, and then I have to
Yes.
recharge
It's
my
the
my
balance, isn't it?
batteries. Yeah. And obviously, I'm fascinated from a sort of starting a business point of view because obviously I'm launching something new, and I described myself the other day as a mumtrepreneur just purely because I was trying to launch this podcast and the kids were off over the holidays. And I was like, I must be crazy. And I'm so inspired by women who have, again, pivot's not necessarily the right change because it's such an evolutionary thing, really. It's been a natural progression for you. But, to have gone from sort of copy journalism to TV, broadcasting, and now, you know, running an empire. What's that like? Have you got a business brain? Are you good with numbers? Have you always been interested in, the bottom line and all of that stuff? Because this isn't necessarily coming that easily to me, but I'm looking for some inspo.
My is an entrepreneur who's always, pretty much since the age of 24, had his own business. And I still remember a conversation when I was 11 and we were playing table tennis in the garden, and he laughs about it because he's like, no, you're definitely going to have your own business. I can see it. You've got that personality. And I went, no, I'm not. I don't want that. I'm going to be the editor of Vogue, and that's that.
Brilliant.
But
Either's great.
yeah, he was right. And I think there's a tenacity, and it does energize you. If you're having a good week, you can feel like you are flying and on top of the world. And when you start to see response from people, like you started talking about Liberty, like that's a huge
Yeah.
goal achieved. And we're working on some other exciting projects. But I know where my weaknesses lie. I wouldn't say I'm awful at numbers. I'm good enough, but I definitely have found people who are far, far better to come in and help with the areas that I need help with. And I think that's a skill in itself, is like sort of knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know. And operations and logistics is another one. So over 80% of our sales are in the US. So we really are moving towards being quite a US heavy business,
Yeah.
which is great, but then it also brings with it its own obstacles.
Well, I mean, without getting into politics too much, but
Yeah,
how have the Trump tariffs gone? Because I have
well,
a few friends
exactly.
with smallish businesses who've been
Yes,
blown out the water by it. I mean, we're all
yes.
right relatively compared to a lot of other countries, but has it had an impact?
Yes, it had,
Mm.
well, not had an impact yet in terms of sales. It may, but what we've done, and I'm really of the mindset that, like, control what you can. I can keep designing and creating beautiful product. I can shoot it, style it, make a best content that I can, and write about it. Keep all that
Yeah.
side flowing. And then what I can't control, I've got a couple of people who are helping us to navigate and pivot. And there are not so much workarounds, but we definitely have plans in place.
Yes,
Whether you import directly into the US and things like that. They're not simple overnight things to
of course
do,
not.
but I refuse to give up. Absolutely not. No way.
Well, that's the key, isn't it? And I wondered how you respond when things go wrong, because every day is a school day when you're starting a business, presumably, and things like that, as you say, out of your control. But do you ever get knocked off the wagon, as it were, and just think, wow, this is really hard going? Or are you gritty, determined, uncompromising, goal-seeking person that sort of you're going to make it happen, hell or high water? Gosh, how many blooming metaphors in one phrase?
A mix, I think. It depends on the day. I'm definitely not uncompromising, though. I think one thing, particularly in this moment we're living through with AI, bulldozing its way into every business, in a good way. I think I'm definitely embracing it. But I think you've got to just be open to change, but stick to your path and your goal. Get the right people around you. I've definitely have moments. I think so. Someone who has a really successful business said to me, "You're still going to face the same challenges. In fact, in ways they'll be bigger, but the way you'll respond to them will be less dramatic. It's not the end of the world, because you'll be used to that sort of moment. You'll be less fearful of the outcome, and it's true. I have
Mm.
that is true. The first year, things that happened, I was in tears. I was thinking, how quickly can you dissolve a business?
Yeah.
Not often, but it definitely crossed my mind. And that's normal. And then the second year, the third year, we're now just going into year 4. You start to have more confidence and faith in yourself, and you definitely don't react in such a way as you did before, even though the same obstacles present themselves.
And it's a really hard lesson, isn't it, to embrace failure? And I'm not saying you've had any failures, but those difficult moments are actually probably really valuable, like extremely valuable. And a bit like, I think, in relationships, if you've never had your heart broken, perhaps you don't appreciate when the one comes along, because you're like, I know how this feels. And I don't know, I think I do believe failure often is a great thing.
100%. And there is no business, big or small, that hasn't failed and learnt from it. And it's the learning that is the important part. Absolutely.
And I'm curious to know, you talked about your dad being an entrepreneur. You and Mackenzie are kind of like, he's involved in Charlotte, England, isn't he, your husband? Is he creative director as well, or just a model, or what's his role? Because I see him in front of camera a lot.
You would
We should
love
talk
that you
about
said
your hubby
model.
for a bit.
No. Not a model, but we met on set. He was and is a director producer in TV. He did a lot of unscripted shows. He worked on things like X Factor, and Beauty and the Geek. Do you remember that show?
Yes.
He did a few things, including Plain Jane. So we met during production.
And you're like, yes, an English person who understands my sense of humor in LA. Hooray, let's get married.
Sense of humor was huge. We actually spent years being really good friends, and then ended up getting married at the end of that. But we have since done quite a few shows together. And so I always think meeting at work, which plenty of couples do, for us is great because it means now when we work together, and we still do, I'll rope him into shooting a Charlotte England thing, or we might work on a fashion campaign or something together. We sort of get it, and I think there's a good synergy to that. But we also had a bunch of mutual friends, and he now shoots video still, but a lot of stills for campaigns for various brands. So he's in Italy at the moment shooting something.
But he's also in front of camera for brands as well, isn't he? That's why I asked. Not just, I think you were filming him on a run in France recently, and I thought, oh, he's loving this, isn't he? But actually,
oh my God, yeah.
That was funny. And I think the kids were finding it funny as well in the car with you. But no, he actually genuinely is in front of camera, like, as a creative decision. It's a bit like the Ali Gordon and Lydia Millen couple. It's sort of a power couple, which works for the gram.
He's done a few commercial things in front of the camera, but I wouldn't say not much.
No.
It's not really his bag. He far prefers being behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I suppose that is really helpful. I mean, my husband's in finance, literally not okay with being a social husband, as in social media husband. I'm like, could you take that again? And he's like, oh, and it's bare bones of an effort from him, and he doesn't have that aesthetic eye. Lots of other wonderful gifts and skills. However, I always think now when I see people's content, there's someone behind the camera taking direction and doing all the stuff, and it's super handy for you to have a professional director who just gets it. So I wonder if that is, I suppose is your chance to give him some credit.
Yeah, no, it's massive, and I think I'm very lucky. He is incredibly talented. He's also very quick when it comes to editing videos or pictures.
Does he do all your editing for social?
For Charlotte England, he does. Yes.
Yes.
So it is amazing. And we'll often go and find, we were on set about 2 weeks ago in rural Sussex, and there's a vineyard there and this beautiful old house. So those days I find really fun. I'm styling each room, moving things around, everything from the flowers to the props, and then he'll come in and talk about the lighting and we'll make something cool happen. And I love that. I really do.
And, I don't want to focus on the girls at all, but, I suppose they're probably learning loads of skills passively in the background as well, which will set them up in good stead. I wanted to just ask lastly on the marriage topic about your wedding, because it was in Eton College, which is so quintessentially English and so beautiful. Tell me a little bit about your wedding day and why you chose to have it there and what it was like.
It was really special, and it's near where my husband grew up, and I wasn't that far either. And Eton College Chapel, there's family connections to that school, and so we were lucky enough to get married in there, and we had a choir because it's a huge space, and you think, we're not going to fill this. So in order to fill it with some sound, we had a choir. It was really special. We had the reception nearby at Dorney Court, which is an old Tudor house, still privately owned. I think it's been in the same family for 600 years or something. But that was gorgeous. And so it just felt really special. And it was nice to get married somewhere where there weren't, next wedding, it was kind of just for
sure. I mean, Eton, for those people who aren't familiar with where it is, it's right on the edge of Windsor town, but it means that you can look up to this incredible site of Windsor Castle. So, I mean, if you had some of your guests from LA, they must have absolutely been blown away by that.
Yeah, no, they did. We had lots of friends from LA in, and a lot of Australian friends who lived in LA. So it was a huge Aussie contingency. And I think everybody really enjoyed being there. It was special.
Oh, I bet they did. Is it 10 years yet? Or are you coming up for your 10 years?
Nearly. Oh, test me. I think we're coming up to our ninth.
Okay, it's 10. I was so disappointed. We had our 10-year last year. I was like, 10? I've done a decade and I get a 10. I mean, what even
rubbish, isn't it?
I think rubbish.
You need to rewrite
jewelry.
Those. Yeah, exactly.
You should bring out a tin range, some sort of really beautiful Charlotte decorative.
Antique good idea.
Well, it brings me nicely to my rapid fire round, which is where I put you on the spot and ask you to choose this or that. And the idea is it gives people a little bit of an insight into the person behind the public persona. And it is when I bring in my bell, so that when I get an answer from you, I will hit the dinger. So are you ready? Brace.
Ready.
I love this bit.
Okay, get the glasses on, get serious.
Yeah, get ready. I can't read anymore. LA or London?
London.
British sarcasm or American optimism?
Bit of both, but mainly British sarcasm.
Early bird or night owl?
Very early bird.
Tea or coffee?
Both.
Oh, both. Okay, I was going to say my next question was which brands, but I'm going to go, let's start with
Well, PG. Oh, I love an Earl Grey.
Earl Grey or PG tips is the question. Oh, the
I'm
pressure.
going to go Earl Grey.
Earl Grey.
And coffee. I'm a real coffee snob. Oh, this isn't very quick fire, is it?
No, it's fine. I
Anywhere
like
that
little
is
interjections.
good in artisanal coffee. I'm a real coffee snob.
That's why you can't live in the countryside.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
good coffee
And
is
also,
a
can someone bring good coffee to airports? Because that's
I know. It's terrible, isn't it? Absolutely dire. That's a great business idea. Always early or fashionably late?
In my mind, I'm on time, but I'm always a little bit late.
Town or country? I think we know the answer to this.
Town.
Brutal reality or gentle white lie?
Gentle white lie. Thanks.
All year sunshine or changing of the seasons?
Seasons. A big reason to come back, actually. Love autumn.
I love autumn. I hate winter. But I think that's because this is the coldest house on the planet. In February and March, I want to just emigrate.
It's raw. Yeah.
Where was I? Cat or dog?
Dog.
Live to work or work to live?
Or work to live, 100%.
Reading or
Has
writing?
anything says live to work?
Oh, loads of people. Loads.
They?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? I
Yeah,
know.
I love
I actually
that,
wasn't
but
sure
that-
how you were going to answer that because I'd have thought you are a bit of a workaholic.
Well, I am, but then the goal is the
Not
greater
to.
goal is,
Yeah.
holiday and fun.
Same. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Reading or writing?
Oh, that's a really writing. Good one. Writing.
Plan every detail or go with the flow?
Plan every detail.
Wine or cocktail?
Both.
Both. I'll let you have that. Be careful how you answer this next one. Netflix or podcast?
Oh, I can't keep saying both, but I do genuinely need both. But if I'd say Netflix.
Oh, I was going to say you got to say podcast,
I
but
know.
okay. Work out at the gym or eat the baguette?
Oh, I eat the baguette. I'll get back to the gym eventually.
Heels or trainers?
Loafers.
Okay. New England or chintzy granny chic?
You find a lot of chintzy granny chic in New England, that area. So I'm really going off piste.
But I was
But
thinking
granny.
like Nancy Myers, like nautical stripes, or are we going for doilies and floral frills?
Oh, New England.
Ooh, okay. And last one, designer meetings or editorial shoots?
This is hard. Oh, I love a good meeting. But an editorial shoot's always fun.
The end. Thank you. It's quite fun that at my launch party we did a Q&A and they turned the tables and made me do that. And actually it's really hard. I want to say
is.
both to everything.
I know. That was really, especially reading or writing. I've never thought of that before. So interesting.
Well, you did start off in editorial, didn't you? You started off writing and that was your...
Yes.
Did you do English at university?
I
meant
did.
to ask you about your early chapters. Let's do that now. What
Yeah.
was your background before you went into Vogue and Elle and all your writing there?
I studied English literature at Durham.
Oh, lovely.
And I absolutely loved it. It was a privilege to be in such a beautiful historical town. They actually filmed a bit of Harry Potter while I was there.
Of course.
Amazing, by the castle. And I absolutely loved being able to do that degree. I think by that age, you're actually able to appreciate it a bit more. School, you're just a bit like, oh, get over.
Well, was English literature as a degree, and don't hate me for this, but was it essentially licensed to curl up and read lots of books?
Yes, but also I always say this when people talk about a vocational degree versus an academic one, is that you're still learning all the disciplines of having deadlines and being able to work, motivate yourself.
Yeah, and
take
critical
initiative.
analysis and all of that stuff.
Exactly. So, and I just thought you also never really get to do that again in your life. Like what I'd give now, as nerdy as it sounds, to go and listen to a lecture there. Maybe I can. I don't know.
Well, when you say you don't live to work, you're working to live, maybe once you are able to retire to the sunset, that's when you actually might. I think I would love to do another kind of formal educational thing. My kids come home from school and I'm like, that is so fascinating. I would love to go back to school. So
I know.
wasted on children.
Exactly. I agree. It is.
I love the literary theme of my title as well, New Chapters. If you were to choose a favourite book, given that you studied English literature, do you have a favourite author or a favourite book of all time?
I love, this is very old school, but Dickens, particularly in the winter. A Tale of Two Cities, I think is brilliant.
I think it,
Um,
despite being one of the big classical, really famous authors, underappreciated. No one really says, "Oh, I'm just curling up with the Dickens," do
no,
they?
no, they don't. You're really right. They don't, and that's a very nerdy answer. But I
I love it
love
though.
a good biography too. It's
A good
always
biography.
brilliant.
And so I ultimately want to kind of end by saying, what's your next chapter, your new chapter going to be beyond where you're at now? What are your goals? I mean, could there be a book in the future, for example?
It's not on the immediate horizon. I would
Yeah.
never ever say never.
A coffee table book, perhaps.
Yes, yes, certainly. But to be honest, I've got real momentum in Charlotte, England, and for me, we're doing some exciting collaborative projects. So those are what I'm focusing on at the moment.
Okay.
Designing with people into new categories.
And could you ever see yourself moving abroad again, or is it home back in England?
Just don't know. Not at the moment. I think once you've got kids and also love where we are, but I think never say never. Who knows?
Yeah. And you hinted there might be another reno in the future, buy another house, do one up. What sort of thing, if you were to buy another house, would be on your wish list?
Plenty of rattan, obviously, but I think just as your aesthetic slightly develops, being able to incorporate those. I mean, God, I love an antique auction, so just being able to pitch those because I'm not allowed anymore, put anything else in. And just I've got so many albums in my phone of inspo for the kitchen and this and that. So it's all those details combined into one that I'd love to be let loose on. Maybe it's not a new house, maybe it's a studio for the brand or an
Oh,
office, something
interesting.
like that, but a space I'd love to be let loose on.
I'm absolutely fascinated. What does your Pinterest kitchen look like? Give us the scoop.
There is lots of wood. There is a brand called Artichoke, and they make bespoke joinery, and their kitchens are just stunning. And Ben Pentreath's kitchen at the Wow House, I don't know if you made it down there at Chelsea Harbour this summer. You can see it online. That was absolute perfection for me,
Really?
but still
I,
very country
I
vibes.
know exactly what you mean about the artichoke wood, though. They do these incredible freestanding sort of tables now instead of a kitchen island. I love all their stuff. So there
Yes.
we go. We've heard it from our tastemaker, Louise. I should point out, because you just said obviously lots of rattan, and I suddenly realised we hadn't really talked about what Charlotte England is in terms of, it's a homewares brand, but why rattan, do you think? Why did you focus in on rattan as your kind of signature item?
I just have a romance with it. It is, I mean, from a practical point, it's sustainable, it lasts, it's very natural and it goes whether you have a modern house or an old-fashioned house. But it's history. It's so nostalgic. It was very, very chic in the Belle Epoque, and you think of the Riviera and people like Hemingway sitting on these gorgeous rattan chairs and tables. So that's the idea that I always have behind it. And I grew up surrounded by my great granny's rattan chairs and cane and all this patinaed wood. And that I'm just obsessed with it. It's nothing more than pure like personal obsession, so I wanted to make lots of it, and people seem to really respond to it as well. I think it can be really welcoming and warm in a formal or an informal setting, and not many materials do both.
Yeah. Well, your eyes just light up when you're talking about it. And they say passion never goes out of fashion. So, if you love it enough, it just rubs off and people will fall in love with it, whether they knew they liked it or not.
Yeah.
Louise, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I
Thank
know you're an
you.
incredibly busy woman. So it means the world to me that you've made time to do this podcast. Thank you so much. Good luck with
Thank
everything
you.
with world domination.
You too. I loved it.
Thank you so much, Louise, for being so open and honest with me this morning. I really appreciate it. And to anybody at home listening along who might feel inspired to turn the page on your own chapter, all I can say is go for it. Do share this episode with anyone you think might need it. Follow along the journey of New Chapters podcast on Instagram. You can also find my brand new website linked there at www.isabelwebster.com. And all that really remains for me to say is be kind to the version of you that got you here and be bold for the one that you're becoming.